Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Jana McBurney-Lin, author of Blossoms and Bayonets. Jana, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Wow, that's a huge question. There are so many pieces of advice I can think of. However, if I had to pick one, it would be don't be in a rush to be done. Let me explain. Now, I started novel writing after years of working as a freelance journalist. At the time, I was living in Japan and teaching English, and writing was something I didn't really intend to do as a job. Still, I kept being amazed or inspired by something I witnessed or experienced, and I felt compelled to share by writing it down. I enjoyed each week contributing to magazines and journals around the world, and I probably would have continued in this vein if I hadn't met my husband, one of the first students sent out of China when China opened up to the world. Several years after we married, when we visited his village in Fujian, I saw something that tugged at my heart. There was a floor-to-ceiling size sign that depicted a couple with a newborn. Underneath were the characters, "A girl baby is just as precious as a boy." I turned to him and I said, "That's so cool. Obviously the Chinese government is behind the valuing of little girls." He shrugged his shoulders. "The government can say what they want, but a house with no mail is a real problem." That's when I thought, this is a story people need to hear, but it's going to take more space than a magazine article will afford. And that's when I started working on what became My Half of the Sky, my first book. But going from writing nonfiction articles to novels was a huge learning curve. The biggest thing I had to learn, and my biggest advice to your writers, is don't rush to be done. Don't rush to finish. I remember that was my main goal. Just get it done, hurry up, get it out there for the world to see. I was used to writing an article a week, so how could a novel take too much longer than that? The first time I was done, I handed it to an editor, and I was surprised that he found more than a missing comma. He tore it to shreds, in fact, but he was right. In the process of writing My Half of the Sky, I think I felt done about 9 times. And it took that long before I really was. So I would say take your time, write and rewrite and rewrite. Keep massaging the words until everything fits in place. Then pass it to an editor or a critique group or both, and start over with the rewriting process. Amy Tan once mentioned to me that she edited her stories at least 1,000 times before it came to print. At the outset, that might seem daunting. However, as I always told my daughter, who loves to play basketball but hates to write, you don't make 3-pointers the first time you toss the ball to the basket. It's constant daily practice. Writing is the same. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. But I think in this day when self-publishing seems more common than traditional publishing, it's especially important that people spend time on rewriting, because I've been asked to review many a self-published book, which may or may not have a great story, but it's so riddled with typos that it's like slogging through mud to try to read it. So that would be my advice, is write, rewrite, rewrite.
Yeah, and a well-edited book is one of the 3 keys on having a great book. Having a great book title with a compelling cover, having a compelling description, but the most important thing, especially if you're going the indie route, is you must have a well-edited book for a finished product.
Exactly. And even if you go the traditional route, the editors at the publishing houses will really appreciate it if they have a well-edited copy to look at.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Well, I mean, everybody has a unique story to tell regarding publishing, but I belong to the California Writers Club, which is a writers organization with about 15 branches throughout the state. And through the club, I met various people, one of whom was asked to head up a publishing company. So the publishing part, while I did go through the process of writing query letters to various companies, kind of fell in my lap. And my agent came after I got a publishing deal, and she fell in my lap as well. So for me, the publishing part was not the struggle that I've heard happen to most other writers. For me, the hardest part has always been the writing. It's a discipline that, because no salary is connected to it, can be pushed aside in favor of cleaning out the closets or going shopping or working for pay or, finally getting the stain out of that carpet. So it's important to set a schedule, I think, no matter how long or short you spend at the desk, and stick with it. So to consider writing your daily meditation.
And you went through a traditional publisher, is that correct?
The first book I went through a traditional publisher. Then I got my agent, and she looked at my second book, and she was the one who said you should self-publish this because it'll get out faster.
Yeah, it's one of the
nice
benefits.
So I've done both.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I like about going the indie route, is because you can get things done so much quicker. When I finished my first book, I had everything published, marketed within a month, and had my first bestseller a few weeks after that. I mean, it's an amazing thing with that. As long as it's well edited, again, we talked about having a great cover and a title and have a compelling description. I mean, you can do it yourself, but again, it has to be that polished product like you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got 13 books out there that look really well published and well put together. So I'm a bit in awe of all you've accomplished. Maybe you should be the one answering the question.
Well, I just got done book number 14, but to motivate me to get that book done, I literally got most of the book done within a 12-hour span, and I bought tickets for the Cowboys game that was happening in Monday Night Football the next day. So that was my motivator, was to get that book done.
Wow.
And if I didn't get it done, I wasn't going to the game. So after I dropped $150 on a couple tickets, it gave me that little extra reward / kick in the rear end to get it done. So yeah, I think with everyone, it's a process. Some people they are in the daily writing habit. Some people are streak writers. I mean, I will freely admit I'm a streak writer. I like to write when it hits, and then I can typically do a book in a couple of days. But every single person is different, and I love how you emphasize about people need to have a daily writing habit, because it definitely does help.
Yeah, because otherwise then you only go back to it when an idea strikes, and sometimes they don't strike until you've been digging through a lot of garbage for day after day after day.
Yeah, you have to find that motivation.
That's amazing. That's a great idea that you set up a kind of reward system for yourself. I'm going to put that in my back pocket.
It helps. Or I know we had another lady, she was on the show a couple of months back, and I think the app was called Slack, if I'm not mistaken. And what it was she made a deposit from her bank to this account. It was like $250. And if she didn't get her writing goal done for the week, then that money was taken out. And not only was it taken out, it was sent to a cause that she could not stand. She was based in the UK. If I remember correctly, she was an Arsenal soccer club supporter. And so that $250, if she failed to hit her goal, was going to be sent to Chelsea FC, which was the arch rival. That would be equivalent of me putting money into an account. Instead of it going to the Cowboys, it goes to the Philadelphia Eagles or the Washington Redskins.
Wow.
So it gave her that motivation, and she set this up for every single week. And she literally got done, I think it was over 100,000 words in a 10-week span, because she was not going to lose her money, and especially wasn't going to lose it to send it to a rival team.
Oh, that's amazing. What a neat idea.
Yeah, so I think accountability definitely is key with that. Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launches that has worked well.
Well, this is a fun question because this marketing strategy did not start out as such. What I mean by that is, well, my second novel was handed to me, Blossoms and Bayonets, which you mentioned earlier. A gentleman approached me at a conference and said, "Your novel first reminds me of old Korea. Will you help me tell my story?" And this man, Dr. Hidong Chai, grew up in Seoul, Korea during World War II as the son of one of the first Christian ministers in the country. And at the time, during World War II, Japan occupied Korea. So your only choice of God was Emperor Hirohito, the Japanese emperor. Yet Dr. Chai's father refused to relinquish his church or his beliefs, and for that the entire family was punished. Well, I was drawn into his story, again, having that moment of this is something people really need to hear. So when he asked me, after a couple years of editing back and forth, he asked me to just write it. I was really honored. Still, I told him, this is not my story. You lived it. So I suggested we co-author it. Now, I'm getting to this point of marketing very slowly, but bear with me. Dr. Chai taught many years at San Jose State here in California. So when the book came out, he started a fund at San Jose State in his father's name, and all of his royalties went to that fund, which would help a Korean student who's here trying to learn. That didn't start out as a marketing strategy. However, when I mentioned to readers that proceeds for the book went to the university, people were really touched and they wanted to be a part of that. I know another author, Bob Davis, who gives proceeds to Wounded Warriors. And again, people want to be part of not only buying a book they're interested in reading about, but in having some of the money go to a charity that they care about. So I found that while that didn't start out as a marketing strategy, it has kind of developed into one. And I mean, if you give away all your proceeds, then there's kind of no point. But you could give a portion of your proceeds to something that you care about. And I found that worked well.
Well, I think that's a business strategy as well. A lot of companies, the same philosophy. I mean, my own company, we're a sponsor of the arts. There's a company that we sponsor called Timeless Concerts. So the main reason I do it is, one, for the love of the arts, but also there are promotional considerations with that. So it's a nice thing that you can do good, you can help others. And then on the karmic wave, you also, you get a little bit of promotion for your company, because it definitely, when you are helping other people, when you are giving back, it really does come back in a great way where you can do the good, and then also it comes back and helps your business. But again, it's that karma approach.
Yeah. And it's fun how the making a connection with, say, a charity or the arts program you're speaking of. It also increases your connections with people. It increases your visibility. So.
Oh, and it shows that you care. I think that's one of the biggest things. It shows that you care outside of just making a dollar. Because my philosophy is with community involvement and also with storytelling, but giving back, because it really does work where you can give back, you can make a difference, and it's always going to come back in a great way.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Okay, well, this is where I fail the test, because I don't have a favorite book. I have dozens, and I'm always adding to the list of favorites. So I never have it as my password-protected secret answer for any of the bank accounts. But I usually follow favorite authors like Pearl Buck, Anita Shreve, Masha Hamilton, Leanne Moriarty. The list goes on and on. And what I love about these authors, more than just picking one book, what I love about these authors is not just their ability to describe scenes so well that I feel like I'm in the middle of all the action, but the way they have to weave the magic of life into their characters. And so they're words that have a magical quality to them.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Again, I'm hard-pressed to pick one. There are so many fun ones. For example, Douglas Adams, the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, said, "I love deadlines. I love the whooshing noise they make as they go by." Or Mark Twain said, "Substitute damn every time you're inclined to write very, and your editor will delete it, and the writing will be just as it should be." But seriously, the quote that I follow the most, or that I believe in the most, is by the philosopher Lao Tzu, who said, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step." So take that step today.
Yeah, that's one of my very favorite quotes. In fact, that was actually, ironically enough, I just said very, part of that, because I absolutely love that quote. And when I was starting my own journey, that was one of the quotes that I looked at, about the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, because it's true. And I actually use that in seminars now, where we talk about taking that first step and not being afraid to take the plunge.
Exactly. Yeah, because it can get so daunting to think, oh, a 300-page book, this is going to take me forever. I'm never going to get a publisher. It's never, you can go on and on with the negativity, but if you just keep moving, you'll get there.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Well, you can reach me personally or order autographed books through my website, which is myhalfofthesky.com.
Well, Jana, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Oh, thank you too, Paul. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I hope we stay in touch.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.